Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge cycling podcast for the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift 2024 route reaction, half of which is not in France. So already there's a foreign grand départ for this race starting in Luke's neck of the woods in the Netherlands and SD Works neck of the woods too. Wait, is it SD Works a Dutch team, right? Not a Belgian team.
Correct.
Okay. Anyway, and Demi Vollering and Lorena Wiebes will be happy to see that. Because of the Olympics, this race is after the Olympics and not directly after the men's Tour de France. There's, I think Kopecky said the Omnium on the track is the day before the first stage of this race. So can riders get from Paris to Rotterdam in a day? I say yes, but actually that might be difficult with sign-on. I don't know. So that's something to bear in mind if there's track riders and many women, especially sprinters, are in their respective nations' track squads at the upcoming Olympics. So that's something to bear in mind. What do you think about the Grand Départ, Benji, being foreign? And also you got a Belgian one.
Honestly, I don't really care too much that it doesn't start in France. I also don't really care too much that over 50% of the cities, like the starting and ending spots in this Tour de France Femmes, are not in France, but I'm not really bothered by that too much. I understand how Netherlands would be the perfect place for this to do, because let's be honest about it, the Dutch women have kind of dominated the scene a few years, and I would argue that it's probably then one of the best countries to do it in, also because I feel like when it comes to women's cycling, Netherlands is really on top when it comes to fandom and stuff as well. So I'd expect quite a bit of support for that Grand Départ. Yes, it's not completely a Tour de France, but I'll get over it. That's for sure. And hey, they're visiting Belgium, so won't see me complain. And it's also like, it's understandable from a route building perspective. In the last years, they've backloaded this race and they're trying to do that again in 2024. And starting in a flat-ass country like the Netherlands is a pretty logical start for a backloaded Grand Tour.
Yeah, exactly. Where it's the same design as Benji alluded to. It begins flat, although there is a stage with a day with two stages. The second of which is a very short time trial, like a short prologue, and then it effectively increases in intensity with some hill stages, including one in Belgium, as Benji said, a Liège light classic, building up with a softer mountain stage on 7, and then a proper difficult double HC climb mountain stage to finish off, like we had. Well, no, we had a TT to finish off this year, but that's the Tourmalet stage that we have again. The route effectively goes north, like starting in Rotterdam, or start in Rotterdam. No, starts in Rotterdam and goes to The Hague and goes north through Belgium, through the Alsace region on the German border, and then all the way down to the Alps at Alpe d'Huez. So not the mini boucle or a grand boucle, more a point to point, north to south in France on the west, the east side of the country. So they are basically using the same formula as last year, Benji. The only thing is the TT, I don't know, because it's a day shorter, right? The overall race is actually a day shorter because of the two stages on one day. Why is there the TTKs lower? Is it because they didn't really want to do a TT, but they felt obliged to have some sort of TT? Because last year there was a proper TT that Reusser won on the last stage.
You're right, but how I see it is that maybe they thought about, we want to do a double stage day, so 2 stages in one day on the second day, and maybe that led to the conclusion that they would do a flat stage and the time trial would be shorter because there's already a flat stage in the legs of the riders. Whether that's the exact theory that led to the brewing of the situation, I don't know, but that's how I perceive it. I'm not as bothered by there being only 6.3 kilometers of ITT in this race as many other people are. I don't think I like it because I feel like the less TT kilometers, the more of a chance people have to beat Demi Vollering in this race. And not that I'm against Demi Vollering, but I want the fight.
We're against her. Is
You
that
are.
our official position? SD Works went 1-2 last year and this year in GC, with Vollering and Kopecky coming second on the same time as Niewiadoma coming third. Van Vleuten in fourth, has retired, obviously. Riolini didn't start the race, but there were big gaps. 3 minutes from Vollering to her teammate Kopecky, and 4 minutes to Van Vleuten, and 3 minutes to Niewiadoma. So Vollering obviously will, whatever route they put down, frankly, as long as it has some sort of mountain, would start the hot favourite. Although Kopecky, I really think, keeps improving, but we'll see with the track. So it's really up to Niewiadoma and others to step up and do so. But yeah, if the route was good in the men's for Vingegaard, this is a route which, barring incident or drafting behind a car illegally, it's another one where Vollering will be like the $1.10 favorite, at least in my opinion, if she retains that level. But hopefully Riolini steps up, or Niewiadoma continues to step up. That would be lovely to see. Why don't we get into it, Benji? Stage 1, Rotterdam to The Hague, 124 Ks, obviously pancake flat. They're going towards the coast. I think it might have 5 meters of elevation gain this stage. Finishing where all the UN, etc. is. This is Lorena Wiebes, Charlotte Kool, who I don't know if she gets on the track. This is a big sprint to start it off, and Wiebes probably takes yellow in her country.
Wiebes or Charlotte Kool, or a different sprinter that might level up, but it's clear that it's between those two on paper right now. And Wiebes is, in my opinion, like you said, also the one that is slightly above Kool at the moment. So I'm also looking at that. There is potential in these first few days for echelons in the Netherlands, but I feel like I don't know the actual terrain enough around the area. It looks close to the border, close to the coast, which is something that indicates potentially there'll be wind. But on the other end, didn't you also like say that a lot of this is happening in cities, or is that more stage 2?
I think that's more stage 2. This is actually going from between two cities, but yeah, stage 2, well, 2A rather. We've never previewed a day like this. Is from Dordrecht to Rotterdam, but here this is, I think, a glorified city criterium. It's mostly doing a lot of laps or in and out of Rotterdam, which is obviously very, very built up. Even we were speaking before the show about crosswinds, potential of crosswinds. Of course, that would be something that would spice up the first 2 stages if there were crosswinds, but you don't need skyscrapers even to stop crosswinds having an effect. Even a 3-story, 4-story building in a built-up environment, it means that the wind is not going to be able to create echelons. So I can't see that happening. You need an open plain with not even any trees. So
maybe.
Well, this is strange. Oh, sorry, go on.
Maybe in the starting point of this stage, like the first 20 kilometers, there's options where they're actually going from Dordrecht to Rotterdam to then eventually have the Rotterdam grid. But I agree that within Rotterdam, it's going to be hard to create those ones. The thing with these sprints as well is the first stage in The Hague, final straight on an avenue, last 5 kilometers on pretty wide roads. So that's pretty straightforward. So no bend with 200 meters to go, based on the description of Maheux, which is the president of the Tour de France Femmes. She's the Tour de France Femmes Christian Prudhomme, if we have to compare it between the 2 races. When it comes to that second stage, also a wide finish. So I would argue we won't see anything spectacular when it comes to technicalities, hopefully. So we should see a proper head-up sprint. But what are you going to say?
Oh, just some Dutch history. This is called in French on the profiles Holland Meridionale. It's not Italian, but Meridional Holland. I think this is South Holland, the Rotterdam area. So that's some geography for you. One of the most densely populated areas in the world, apparently. And I think there's going to be fans all along the road, like everywhere. I think this is going to be, like we mentioned before the stage previews, Benji, there's a reason this race is coming here. I think this is going to be absolutely packed, particularly if the Dutch women have had success at the Olympics. They're going to be, there or thereabouts for the road race or TT as well. So people will be lining up to see their gold medal or whatever heroes here. The strange part is this TT. What is this? Rotterdam to Rotterdam. Pardon?
First of all, I think we need to start talking about the fact of the 2 stages on one day, what the effect will have before we dive into the second stage. Because, like, I reckon I've seen this before in some of the, what is it, the Simac Ladies Tour that does this? I think some of the Dutch one week races
Healthy
do that.
aging.
Yeah, has done that before, if I recall as well. So we see those like combinations of 2 stages on one day. We've seen it back in the day in men's cycling as well, but that has kind of disappeared from the top levels of men's cycling. I kind of like it. It's like a full day of activities. I don't know. And like the first sprint stage, also 67 kilometers, a 2A stage. So then to have a 6.3 kilometer ITT afterwards from Rotterdam to Rotterdam. So basically a route around Rotterdam. That is going to be very minimal differences, I reckon.
Yes, I mean I think there can be though. Like poor old Riolini's looking at this,
20 seconds.
Geez, this ain't the best thing for me. A power flat TT, a 7-minute effort, whereas someone like I'm looking at the Simac Ladies Tour as you mentioned, they had a 7K TT. Someone like Kopecky can win this. She can win this TT and blow everyone away. And she had gaps. Like to Vollering, she had 15 seconds. And to probably, I don't know, there weren't too many climbing GC contenders at that race. But I dare say someone like Kopecky could put 20 plus seconds into a Nuviodoma on this. So I think it's a good course for Kopecky to podium again. But Vollering should still be probably the best of the GC contenders. It's almost a bit too short for someone like Reusser. And it'll be interesting to see if Wiebes has yellow after the first 2 sprints. Will she be able to hold on to that against probably her teammate Kopecky if she is there? I don't.
Why not try?
Might be back too.
Yeah, true. That's also a factor that we haven't considered, the return of Ellen van Dijk and so forth. But it's also a short TT, so there might be some spicy results by the end. But stage 4 is really where the race kicks off, in my opinion, which is basically, if we call these stages 2A and 2B, then technically the next stage is stage 3 and not stage 4, which, sorry, but this is playing with my head.
How is that how can you have, because normally to have a TT that's under 10 kilometers, aka a prologue, it has to be the first stage. There's obviously an exception in the rules that if you have 2 stages on one day, you can have the second stage as a TT that's so short.
You can have any TT as that short, but it is just classified as a prologue when it is at the start of the race. So it's not that it blocks the race organizers from having a 2-kilometer TT at the end if they want.
Question. If this is still the rules, why do so many riders participate in the prologue?
Agreed.
I don't understand when there's
declare
prologues.
The rule for people.
Oh, so I think the rule is, Luke will correct me if I'm wrong, that the reason it's called a prologue, not a time trial, is because there is no time cut. And so if you don't participate in the prologue or if you don't finish, you are just put on the last time the time of the last rider. So if you're a sprinter at a Tour de Romandie with Tion 2000 coming up and 2 mountain stages, you could effectively just not do the prologue. It doesn't matter because you're not there for GC. And we rarely see riders not doing the prologue at all. I understand it's good to test the equipment, get data, etc. I do not believe that all 8 riders in every prologue in this year are testing data and the equipment. So yeah, I don't know why they all do it.
I don't remember the rules specifically. I perceived it as you don't need to finish it, but you do need to start it. But I'm not 100% certain there. But anyway, same story. Why do they all finish it?
Well, there's no time cut.
You jump on the bike 1 meter in.
30 kilometers an hour on a road bike.
Would be a gimmick. Just getting up the starting ramp and then jumping in the car.
Yeah. Anyway.
I'd do it.
We won't see that in the TT on stage. Yeah, stage 3, we're not allowed to call it stage 2B. But yeah, this classic stage, Benji, which is stage 4, run us through this, because there could be huge GC gaps already on this stage.
Yeah, the name at the start and the name at the finish already declares what kind of stage it will be. Valkenburg is the start and Liège is the finish. So Valkenburg we know from the Amstel Gold Race, and then Liège we know from Liège-Bastogne-Liège, and that's exactly what this race is. It's a combination of both of these two races. The first 30 kilometers is Amstel Gold Race with a combination of the, let me just put my laptop vertically here, the Bemelerberg, the Kouberg, the Hulhemmerberg, the Bemelerberg. So those are the first 4 climbs in the first 24 kilometers, which the thing about that is that it could be something to form a breakaway, but I often feel like in women's cycling we might ride over these first few climbs unhindered, and maybe there'll be a few attacks. I hope that last year the actions of Phoenix, which was one of the best teams in that race to look at because they were so active and so forth, I hope that triggers other people to also get into breakaways more, to also try to get more from the race than just sitting in the peloton and hoping that you can compete at the finish line even when you're far from the favorite. But the second half of the race, after like a 40 kilometer of just transitioning terrain, we get towards the climbs which are towards Liège, and we've got the Maheux with roughly 50 kilometers to go, 2.8 kilometers, 5.9%. That probably won't be the one where people go on, but then it arrives at 88 kilometers into the stage, so about 34 kilometers from the finish line, the Côte la Redoute, which is the one from LBL where people tend to launch, 0.6 kilometers at 9.4%. Then we've got the Cornemont, which is an unclassified climb just behind that, which is like a few kilometers later, 3 kilometers later. Côte des Forges also in the race with 23 kilometers to go, 1.3 kilometers at 7.8%. And the final kicker is the Rochefoucauld 1.3K at 11%, which lands with 13 kilometers to go. So it's a final of LBL, right?
And there's a rider to the Ardennes Triple this year who also won this race overall, Demi Vollering. So she will have seen this stage with absolute glee. I think it's so difficult, and it's so clearly, I mean, it literally is the Liège finish, that there's no, we go for Lotta today, we give the stage to Lotta Kopecky. To me, it's very obvious that you would go for Vollering, or you'd play both of them as cards. You could maybe play Kopecky early like they did in Strada Bianca as well. But if I was her, I would really target this stage. Probably she's a little bit behind Kopecky. So in terms of, I'm just going to assume Kopecky's here because it's more fun.
I'm going to assume she's not here. Because I think she prioritizes Olympics.
Right. I mean, yeah, maybe. Olympic gold is huge.
We want her to be there.
Yeah. If you're Vollering, you got to take time back on your teammate here. So you gotta go for it at this stage. Yeah, and Kopecky from the from the TT. So I think she's got to go for it on this stage. Love to see Niewiadoma also active. I mean, Canyon Stram are the team who I think improved. They were the most improved team of women's cycling in 2023.
Yeah.
Probably incorrect. I'm sure if you look at the numbers, it's probably SD Works, but boring. I think Canyon Stram really impressed me. They even won a stage of this race with Bauernfeind, who was at the Route presentation. I would love if their classics team, their Ardennes classics team with Niewiadoma, with Roy Ackers, with Bauernfeind, if they stepped up another little step, and now they've got Backstep, Benji.
Yes.
Backstep transferred from EFs because it folded. I'd love to see them do something. I got Vollering winning the stage though. Hard to see past her, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that's a viable winner on your spreadsheet here, and that's really like the first kicker of the stage. And the thing is, this is still 122 kilometers, but it's gonna be hard throughout. If we go to the next 2 stages, those are the ones that are longer. The next 3 stages are longer. The next one's 150 kilometers from Bastogne to Annéville, so we're entering France. About 50 kilometers into the stage, we enter the French region. And I don't know, there are hills in the last half of this race. We've got, with roughly 30k to go, the how the fuck do you pronounce that? Brie? Something like that.
Oh, you know, I can't do the Alsace Lorraine ones. I've always struggled. 4 years in, I can't do them. Côte de Brie. We're in the Moselle.
The cheese. 1.1k, 4.4%. So I don't see that doing most. Then with 16k to go, there's 1.7 kilometers at 6%. So that's a bit rougher, and that's really the last pure challenge. But I feel like the last kilometer of the stage is going uphill. Did Marion Roos say anything about that, or?
I think it's like a false flat drag, maybe like 2-3%.
Yeah.
It looks really, really good for Kopecky, but
or Lippert, or not hard enough.
Lippert is so good on those, but I think she likes 5-6%. Or to be like Amstel Gold Race, where it's like 2Ks, 8%, and then a flat 500 meters afterwards.
Yeah.
This is screaming Kopecky to me, but also, to be honest, Wiebes can make this in her new form. I think it's going to be... But I think this is a breakaway. Okay. I think this is a breakaway winning because it is really quite rolly with some decent hills and 16-15Ks from the finish. This reminds me of the Norsgaard stage that she won, where Reusser and Lippert on the final hill randomly went clear. The chase wasn't that good, and Norsgaard won.
I think that's viable. I think who would I expect to see make that move, though? As in, Vos would probably be the candidate for Jumbo for a stage like this, but might we see some reverse lead-out shit where Marcus goes on the attack, tries to use her TT skills like that? We see Grace Brown in opportunities like this all the time. There's so many riders that could be doing this that it's impossible to predict it from a year out, but it should be a good stage. But I reckon the next two will be harder stages than people perceive. As in, I feel like stage... What number are we at?
Oh, dear.
Jesus Christ.
We're 6. The Morteau stage is stage 6.
Yeah, okay. The Morteau stage. I'll let you introduce it, but the length is really going to do something on that one, I reckon.
I think so, and I'm just reminding myself, because I keep saying, well, a lot of Kopecky will clean that one up, and then SD Works will share it around, There were 3 breakaway wins in about 4 days in this year's race because the chase was... everyone decided, quite rightly, we are not going to help SD Works anymore. Yep. And Castelline won after Van der Velde nearly won 2 days before. And then there was Bauernfeind, and then there was Norsgaard. It might have been the Bauernfeind stage where Reusser and Lippert went clear, but you get my point. Like, I think breakaways, even in the Liège stage, frankly, are possible. And I think Canyon SRAM will target that. But yeah, stage 6, Christian Prudhomme was talking about Morteau, saucisson. So apparently the sausage is good from Morteau in the Vosges region. It is hilly as well. Hilly for the first 106 Ks, but not too severe, and then intensifies with 5.5 Ks, 5.6%. But the categorization effectively cuts off the second third of that climb that I can see. So that's basically a 9-kilometer climb with a short descent and then a 2K 7% steep section. So that's actually basically...
It's a mountain.
It's 17 Ks of climbing with a short descent in it. It's a mountain before what is it? Maybe 10K descent into Morteau with a flat section at the end. You can make differences here. Like we know in the women's peloton as well, 5 and 6% is enough if the big guns go to make differences.
My question is, though, with this stage and with the future stages we're going into, Van Vleuten was really the orchestrator and the catalyst of early action in a lot of the stages we had in the Tour de France Femmes in previous years. As in, she would launch from the bottom of the Grand Ballon 2 years ago, if I reckon, or Petit Ballon, whatever that climb was.
Petit Ballon, yeah.
And then I always felt like she was the one that attacked early. And I wonder if Vollering might be a bit more defensive to the point that it'd have to come from a canyon rider here or there to roll attacks, maybe.
Her name is Kay Asia Nuviadoma. It's got to be her, right?
Yeah, but I feel like maybe the other riders can be early action, like Bauernfeind might go first, then Niedermeyer goes, and then maybe Nuviadoma is the final hit because she's the largest chance for them to podium.
That's a great point. Yeah, if you're Canyon SRAM, you try get in the break. If you don't get in the break, you launch early with your second tier climbers on this climb and put Nuviadoma in a seat. And that's the thing. I think SD Works got to take Fisher Black to this race. If Kopecky doesn't do the race, if she doesn't do it and they don't take Fisher Black, who will chase a Canyon SRAM rider if they do what you said,
Wait.
Benji, on this climb?
They might just put Reusser in that group and react with Reusser and just put her in that wheel. But if you have Reusser in that wheel, if you're Niedermeyer or Bauernfeind and Reusser is in your wheel, would you be more willing to have Niedermeyer or Bauernfeind fight it out with Reusser?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I don't think that's a scenario I would hate. Because like as they were sending their domestiques forward was always the weakness this year. Or well, in the little amount of races that it mattered.
Yeah, it would always have been better just you put Royce on the front and then make the race as hard as possible, and then Vollering does the business. But it's difficult often to get someone to do that as a domestique who's also could be Olympic champion in the TT, won the stage. You can top 5 GC in this race as well. Royce herself, she did pace on the Tourmalet this year, but Kopecky did not pace for Vollering really on the Tourmalet if my memory serves me correctly.
Yes, but I feel like that was tactical from the team and not necessarily egotistical or something.
No, I'm just saying like probably before the race to manage, and we saw in the Vuelta, it is borderline impossible to manage so many top riders in one team because Wiebes wants to win points in multiple stages. Reusser wants to win the TT and do her best in GC and try and maybe win one of the mixed stages. Kopecky wants to do her best on GC, win whatever.
Olympics.
Maybe exactly. Maybe she's like, oh, it's too much of a mess. I'll go to the Olympics. Vollering wants to win GC, so it's very, very difficult to manage all that. But yeah, what do you see from this stage then? I think
GC fight.
I actually think it's a breakaway again. And with someone like a good climber like a Bauernfeind winning.
I don't see it. For me, it's GC fight. And maybe Bauernfeind can win from that group, but maybe an early action can lead to the victory if SD Works doesn't want to control it entirely, but it would have to be riders that are not dangerous for GC as well, which after the stage we had, I don't expect Bauernfeind to be on 20 minutes either. So
true.
It's kind of like, I don't know. But it is 160 kilometers. I think
it's a long stage.
Last year, the longest stage I think ever in women's cycling was 177 kilometers in that year, which was to Rodez, if my memory serves me right.
Who won that?
Vollering?
I think Castelline.
Castelline? Oh, that was a break stage. Yeah, you're right. But the difference here for me is that there's a medium mountain in the last 20 kilometers, which I think GC can really ramp it up on. So I don't know. I see it like that. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm right. We'll see eventually. But
it depends
the next stage.
Of course, if SD Works just put someone on the front to pace, the break does not win. So it's in their hands and Trek as well. But yeah, the next stage, Benji. Now we're going actually to the Haute Savoie in the Alps.
Champagnol to Le Grand Bornand, 167 kilometers. And I just said it. That stage last year, 177 kilometers. The riders afterwards were like, ooh, that was a long stage. It was difficult to make difference at the end of a 177 kilometer race. This is 167, so it's shorter, but I think this is harder because we've got a medium mountain 50 kilometers in. It's the Côte de la Croix de Serra, de la Serra, 12 kilometers at 5.1%. That's proper attrition and is a launching pad if you want to do something crazy. Who knows? Then there's so many like smaller hills in between at 2.4 kilometers at 4.5%, 4 kilometers at 4.5%. But there's so many unclassified hills in there as well that it's ups and downs throughout the day. I'd be curious to know the exact elevation while you're staring at a computer. Hopefully you can find it. And this is all in a run in towards the final climb, which is the climb to Le Grand Bornand, which this is also one of those like double climbs, baby. 2-stepped climbs. So we first have the Col de Saint-Jean de Sixt, which is 5.4 kilometers at 5.1%. But it has like a 1 kilometer descent and then goes straight into the next mountain, which is Monte de Chinaillon, 7 kilometers at 5.1%. So the gradients are 5%, but it is 12 kilometers of climbing with a kilometer of descent in between. So this is going to be a GC winner.
This is by far the second hardest stage we've seen in any of the 3 editions.
Yeah.
We have not seen A.S.O. put in basically a second mountain stage before, and I think they've probably realized, like the Tourmalet stage I thought was really good last year. Of course, Vollering smoked everybody in the end, but I thought that was great. Nuhiudoma kicked it off, and I thought it was an unbelievable stage. So, Covadonga in La Vuelta Femenina. Unbelievable stage as well, their big mountain stage. So they've gone with the second mountain stage, as Benji said. This is a lot of climbing. There's not much flat in this at all. I think there can be big differences on this stage. I worry about Riolini staying close in GC basically up to this point, and I also don't think it's the best climb for her. I think it's still good, but yeah, this is a really good climb for Vollering, who's heavier than Riolini, but also, you know, the world's best climber. And yeah, I think it's also a good finish for Kopecky. I think it's a really good climb for her and Roysa with that 5% for a long time.
If the race had finished at the end of this stage and Kopecky
wins GC.
I don't believe so. I think Vollering still wins it, but she won't be 3 minutes behind.
No, certainly not. But yeah, she would certainly be on the podium, I think, if it finishes here. I think maybe the next stage might not be the case. But yeah, I think that's the thing, Benji. If Vollering does the business here, she's also probably going to have, well, not probably, she will beat Riolini and say the TT and Nuviadoma in the TT. Yeah. Say she takes some bonies, even if they're passive, takes bonies here or there in Liège, in some of the other stages, and then also just does like a Roglic, rides up to this point like Roglic, and on the Grand Bonnot also does that, because she did that on the stage where she gapped Van Vleuten this year, and, you know, takes maybe 10 plus 10 here, goes into the last stage on a minute in the lead. What do?
Well, they got to try and attack her somehow, but like you have to look at the kind of rider you are. Like, first of all, let's go over this profile.
Yeah.
You can do it.
Le Grand Bonnot, which is, sorry, not O'Connor, it's where Pogacar basically ended the Tour de France in 2021 when you had the Rom combo. They start there, some rolling hills at the start. It's a 150k stage before a 40 or 50k valley before this. It's the same stage as the mountain stage this year, effectively, but I think I don't know if it's more difficult or not. I don't think so, because they do the Col du Glandon, 20Ks at 7.2%. That's the hardest climb in the stage, up to 1942. Descent, another 15K valley before Alpe d'Huez, the famous Alpe d'Huez. So Dutch corner there. Does this count as a Dutch finish as well? Did the Netherlands pay for this finish? 14Ks, 8%, up to 1850. Does it stop in that corner?
No, it's not a Dutch finish.
Not a Dutch finish. Double mountain this year, as a reminder, they had finishing on the Tourmalet, but there was action beforehand. That was only a 90k stage, so that was much shorter, and the Col d'Aspin was not as difficult as the finish. And on the 12k, 6.6% on the Col d'Aspin, it completely kicked off there with Van Vleuten launching. So this has the Col d'Aspin compared to the Col du Glandon are not comparable. The Col du Glandon is harder than is similar to the Tourmalet itself, and then you got up to This is much harder.
Yeah,
and it's also 60k's longer with hills at the start. I think this is going to be monster gaps. I think I've said so much about SD Works. I really believe if Riolini improves, which is possible for, how old is she? You know, a 20-something-year-old, 22 years old. I think Riolini could win the Tour on this stage.
That is possible, but I've got one issue with Riolini. And my issue with Riolini is that the descent of the Glandon is a problem.
Yes.
As in, she's a pretty light rider, and I think that's an understatement, to the point that it's such massive weakness for her in descents that she just loses ground. She's been dropped in so many descents in 2023. So, I believe it's not just technicality, eh? It's literally just her weight catching up with her.
Yeah. It's just, she's 40 kilos. Like, it's so difficult for her to just, if she has to pedal out of a corner. Say they go down a corner, there's two hairpins, you know, Vollering kicks out of it at 600 watts. Really needs 40 kilos. She's kicking out of it at like 350, 400 watts, maybe less. And so it's also tiring for her to just stay on the wheel.
Yeah, so that's my issue there. If she can get to the bottom of Alpe d'Huez in the same group and still has energy left, then it's possible. But it's also like she might still be in the group, but she might be completely destroyed from the actual descent to the point that she might not be able to go all out on the final climb then. But I want to see it. I also want to see Niedermayer prime. I want to see all those kind of riders. Yeah. I want to see Niewiadoma. Maybe Niewiadoma goes on Glandon because she has that descent quality. It's honestly 19 kilometers at 7%. The gaps could already be there on Glandon. This is not a small climb. This is not like we've got this hill outside of Gistel called the Roxenberg, which is about 15 meters in altitude. It's not that.
Or
it's a big climb.
The highest point in the Netherlands.
I think that's not true. Is it?
This looks like a men's stage. This is for the first time as well. You look at this and you're like, this is a proper Tour de France mountain stage. I thought last year's was good as well. And listen, whether the valleys, if the valley's 50Ks or 20Ks, it means the stage is 30Ks longer. It doesn't necessarily mean it's more exciting or really more attritional if they're just cruising along a valley anyway. So, but this has hills and proper climbs at the start where the break might form. Yeah, I agree. Like Col du Glandon is insanely hard as the first climb, followed by Alpe d'Huez.
And the thing is, one of the first reactions I got on Twitter when I was like giving my opinion on this profile was, "Oh, the stage is too short." No. Tourmalet was 89 kilometers, and the gaps were 5 minutes to the sixth rider, 2 minutes from 1 to 2. This is gonna be huge gaps, 150 kilometers.
Yeah, Covadonga was 90Ks, and the gap from first to 10th was 3 minutes 40.
It's gonna be a huge difference. This is the all-out deciding stage. Are there tactics possible? Because I feel like this will just be won by the best rider.
No, I think Riolini's going to kill everybody. I think she's going to kill everybody on this stage.
You want to see it, huh?
I think she will drop. Well, I think she was the strongest on Covadonga, but she had a gearing problem, which really cost her on that climb. And I think this is much harder. And also, Covadonga's actually it's pretty difficult, that climb. But yeah, I can't wait to watch this. It's going to be brutal. Yeah. There's going to be monster gaps. The gap from first to 10th is going to be like 5 minutes maybe. And yeah, it certainly could kick off on Glandon, and that's the final stage. So yeah, like whoever GC could be decided. I think why do they do it like that? I think that might be. I know they do it in advance, so it might not be from the previous year. But yeah, the finish of Covadonga, I'd encourage you to go watch that this year. It was the final stage of the Vuelta, the women's Vuelta. GC was decided there by like by a few seconds because Van Vleuten held on.
You got a video on that on your channel?
I do, yeah.
There we go. People know where to go.
P-Gate, because allegedly Van Vleuten attacked SD Works when they were all decided they stopped for a nature break before a crosswind section. So Van Vleuten won GC by 9 seconds despite losing a minute on Covadonga. But how would you rate the route, Benji? We've gone through all the stages. I think it's each year they seem to build it up in terms of length of stages and difficulty of stages bit by bit. It's still only 8 stages, and to be honest, 7.5 because that prologue is not prologue. That TT is much shorter than this year's. What would your overall assessment of the race and parkour be?
I think one small thing is that I would have liked this year to have been the opportunity, by the fact that they have 2 stages on one day, to add an extra day to it, because then it's the same amount of days but 1 stage more. That would already be a step in the direction of a longer Grand Tour here. I don't care what kind of stage they would have added. I do feel like the pacing in this Grand Tour is pretty good, as in I like that it's backloaded, because otherwise we'd have a very decided race very early. And I don't mind it starting in the Netherlands. That should create quite a bit of hype in the Netherlands. That might create more hype than we saw last year with the Tour de France Femmes, to be honest. I reckon we'll have more hype at the start of the Tour de France Femmes in 2024 than the start in France in 2023.
Yeah, probably. I think it is going to be mayhem in those stages, and that's really good. That's probably why they wanted to have it there, as you said.
My score. I'd say about an 8.5, maybe. As in, one thing I would like to see more is kind of like the the tactical medium mountain stage. That makes sense? As in one where you could see some it's difficult to create
That's
it.
the age, isn't it?
That's a hilly stage for me. I want to see like a tactical medium mountain stage with like 5 kilometers at 7% with like a valley afterwards and maybe a climb at the start to create a situation where people could send riders forward. I'm just thinking through those kind of things. I want to see something like that.
Yeah, true. I think it's missing a wall finish. I don't even think we had one. We had some of them in the first year, but when I look at this for Lippert, I'm like, what stage can Lippert win? And maybe it's that Omniville.
Wait. Where is Muur de Huy? Isn't that near Liège? Why did they not finish the LBL stage and combine all 3 hill classics by doing Amstel at the start, then LBL
true.
with Laredo, Rochefort, and finishing on Muur de Huy? It'll be too backloaded at that stage. People would wait for Huy.
Yeah, probably. And Vollering would be too good on that anyway. But yeah, I think it's kind of missing that. But apart from that, it's a pretty good route. I'd give it a 7. I give it a big tick for the final mountain stage. I think that's like, people don't realize yet how hard that stage is going to be. And I think it's so hard that even if Vollering goes in with a 130 lead, she has a problem. I think it's possible that a pure climber like Riolini can actually win GC on just that stage.
If you are Lorena Wiebes, why would you stay longer than the stage to Anneville?
Maybe if you're in the points jersey.
Yeah, true. Yeah. But like, most sprinters could fuck off then.
I guess they'd probably wanted to help control the breakaway on the next stage.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the Grand Bonon and Alpe d'Huez not looking good for her or the other sprinters. And if you get dropped, if breakaway formation on that final stage is aggressive on the opening 2 climbs in the first 30 kilometers, it could even be an explosive start to that stage. But let us know what you think. Will Demi Vollering just clean it up again? Am I being too bullish on Riolini? Is that just cope? I'm sure SD Works is going to have a big plan for the Netherlands Grand Départ. And I think it's a pretty good route overall. And as Benji said, maybe an extra stage with the extra day would have been the way to go. But to be honest, they're trying to work it around the Olympics in an unusual year. And that's also a good test to see, without being directly attached to the men's race, what will viewership be like with it sort of standing on its own, being in a separate, 2 weeks, 3 weeks later rather than straight afterwards. I'm not complaining because we get a little bit of a break between the 2 races, but that will be very interesting to see the viewership data on that, which they've been forced to do. So I hope you enjoyed the episode. We'll be back with not team previews, with awards shows coming next week, GC, and then we'll get into the team previews in November. Ineos have started to announce a rider, one rider a day. I'm not sure Oscar Rodriguez package deal with Carlos Rodriguez needs his own day to digest. I think we all know what happened there. 3 years, man. Yeah,
it's Amador Carapaz package, eh? Every time their agent, Aquadro, combines both, a rider that is less likely to get a deal like that with a rider that is likely to get a deal like that, to make sure both get a World Tour contract. And I often wonder, does that negatively impact the desire for the big rider in any way? Does that impact that? Because then you're not necessarily acting in their best interest.
No. But probably Carlos Rodriguez just got a lot more money from Ineos than he was going to get out of Movistar, so he's probably not complaining because they signed the pre-contract at Movistar, and that leveraged his price up. But yeah, you're right. It's a bit strange. I mean, I also think it's strange that professional teams allow that sort of thing to happen. And but yeah, anyway,
they're being held hostage by agents, basically.
Yeah, it's not how I would approach it, but maybe you don't. If you want the talent, you want the talent, if that's indeed what happened. But yeah, 3-year deal to Ineos. Oscar Rodriguez, a bit surprised. He is a fine rider. He had a bad crash in the Giro. Yeah. But
mid-range domestique, but he won't make the difference.
Yeah. I mean, they've had success taking Movistar domestiques with Castro, so he could be okay, but yeah.
I remember I remember the day where Oscar Rodriguez won a Vuelta stage when he was riding for green jersey. What was that? What was that bloody team? Euskaltel, the green jersey? Were they still green back then?
Yeah, it was Euskadi, yeah.
That Vuelta. Was that the Lopez Yates Vuelta? Painful.
I was 2018, yeah. He won that 5 years ago. He's 28 now. So, anyway, we'll see what other... Oh, they announced AJ August. I should do the positive as well. So that's a big coup. They got... Ineos Scott, one of the most highly touted juniors on the market.
Yeah.
He sort of goes toe-to-toe with Jorgen Nordhagen, who's like Jumbo Super Junior, the Norwegian. So they got August, the young American GC prospect. So we'll be seeing him. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing him probably on their like Settimana, Coppi Bartoli type program, which their neopros normally do. He signed for 3 years, and yeah, he's a really, really big talent. Can't wait to see how he goes. He won the... I'm trying to... Oh, so yeah, if you want to see them go head-to-head, you can, I think, watch on YouTube Courdelapé Junior Stage 1, where he and Nordhagen go to the line and sprint each other, which is pretty cool. And then he came second on GC behind Nordhagen. Philipsen, the Danish rider, was also in that race as well, highly touted junior. So
Danish Jasper.
The next guy skipping World Tour.
Yeah. Skipping World Tour?
Skipping U23, sorry. Skipping U23. Yeah, just skip World Tour, go to Universe Tour. Cycling in another dimension.
I gotta give some credit to the Belgian Jarno Wieder, come on.
He's actually really good. Lotto got him signed up, don't they?
Yeah, they do. In the dev team still. So he's not skipping World Tour.
Luke just said skipping World Tour. You just retire. I've achieved all I need to in the sport. I'm retiring.
That's fucking sad.
He's really good, man. Jarno Wieder. He won La Philippe Gilbert Juniors. He's won loads of other races. Good in Lunigiana, like Brenner
RVV?
and Remke was. He's very small, isn't he?
Yeah, he's punchy. He tends to ride away on hills, whether it's cobble or non-cobble, and then stays away until the line. So pretty good.
Yeah, a lot of exciting junior talents coming through. I can't wait to see them in World Tour or U23 or retired. In fact, next year.
Luke just said Jarno Wieder is just like me for real. or wait, are we talking about Jarno Wieder or about retirement?
I think he's talking about retirement because Luke's like 6'5" and Jarno Wieder looks like me. All right.
Christ.
That's all from us. We'll be back maybe with more we probably won't have another transfer pod, to be honest, because we'll just get straight into team previews. We've obviously got Rouleur next Friday, a week from today. Benji and I will be there in London in case you want to see us in person that evening on the 3rd of November. But thanks as always for listening, and we'll see you starting next week. Ciao.